Okay, here's the deal. Separation is an illusion, so how do we obliterate the illusion that we are separate? Part of our life's journey for sure is that we get to a place of oneness, oneness with God, oneness with creation, oneness with each other. We belong to each other. So we want to obliterate the illusion that we're separate, that there's some kind of us and them. I remember years ago I knew a kid, we'll call him Louis, who grew up in the projects. I met him when he was 15 years old, and his room was a closet, and I remember him showing me his room, and it had a scrunched up kind of mattress where he'd have to lie in the fetal position. And it was his way of escaping. It was his refuge from a lot of terror and violence and adults getting high all the time. Got into a gang, even got shot once in the projects, and he survived it, so he tattooed on himself, "I'm still here." He was one of the crew, this is so many years ago, who built our child care center. It was always a source of great pride for him to walk up to the child care center, and there was a plaque that had his name engraved on it, and he pointed it out for years and years to come. I can remember once he called me sort of in a panic, and he was sobbing, and I can't remember exactly what the precipitating event was. I think he thought he was going to be violated by his parole officer. So I went to go see him in the projects. We were sitting in the stairwell, and he was just sobbing. And I remember asking him this question: "Mikko, what do you want? Like, what do you most deeply want?" And if you can identify what it is that you want, then you've identified what God wants for you. It's how it works. And he really took a long time, and he closed his eyes, and he strained, and he tried to find it until he finally said, I just want to be a good father, but I don't know how to be one. Certainly he didn't have a lot of guideposts. I buried his own father a couple of years before of a heroin overdose. So it was hard for him to conjure up an image of what fatherhood looked like. Well, once I saw him on a Friday late afternoon, and he didn't live in the projects anymore, so I used to always woof, "What are you doing in the projects?" "I'm visiting." I said, "Well, visiting hours are over." And then he tried to change the subject, and he said, "Hey, you're going to be proud of me on Monday. I'm beginning classes at Rio Hondo College." I said, "I am proud of you. Visiting hours are over." He finally left, I think a couple hours later. But as he tried to get on the freeway, somebody saw him, an enemy, opened up fire, and one bullet hit him in the head. And he was declared brain dead at White Memorial Hospital. I was there for most of those 48 hours as they kept him connected to machines. His lady was by his side with pictures of his two kids propped up on the side table. Friends, homies came in, sobbed, caressed him, draped rosaries over his head. The doctors asked me, please talk to the family to convince them to sign the permission to donate his organs. And the grandmother finally signed it. She said, not his eyes. Please don't take his eyes. And so his two nurses wheeled him to the surgery operating room to harvest his organs. One nurse, no doubt noticing his tattoos, shook her head in disgust. And she said, who would want this monster's heart? And the other nurse stopped the gurney in mid-hallway and she said, how dare you call him a monster? Didn't you see his lady and his kids? Didn't you see his friends? This was no monster. This was some mother's son. Shame on you. The only reason I know this story was because she told it at an in-service I gave to the nurses at White Memorial Hospital, and she was crying the whole time she told the story. And at the end of the story, she said, I cried all the way home. And that's the sound of somebody obliterating the illusion that we are separate. There are no monsters. no matter how hard you look. We belong to each other. And the longing of our lives is to feel ourselves connected to creation, to our God, and to each other. Separation is an illusion.